And Chris Gibson is on his way. He said he's been caught in traffic.
No kidding.
In Surf City.
Have you seen it out? It's ridiculous.
It's so crazy.
Is it because it's Juneteenth?
Yeah.
Those people. I mean, I can't believe that both ways. It's as, I think everybody island takes.
Everybody out and all of us.
Same thing I'm doing now.
Yeah.
Just like.
We tried to go out
every
there
other
Monday
one,
night.
but
I
they
refused to
somebody
wait.
see somebody
So
come
I
in, they think they're supposed to
started,
come
we had
in.
a company come in unexpectedly.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Just everywhere. Yeah. The shortest wait was 45 minutes. I don't muck with you.
Oh, man.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you all for attending. Bob Barnett, as we talked about, he's in Italy. So he's not going to be able to attend, but we've got a quorum here today.
It's not a very good excuse.
Yeah, well, I know.
You could have called in, don't you
Yeah,
think?
he should have called in. But he didn't, but we do have a good group. And as I said, Chris Gibson is on his way with TI Coastal. And as I was leaving the house, I noticed on our agenda that we don't have an item for a TI Coastal update. So I would entertain a motion that we amend our agenda to include that.
Call him and tell him not to come.
Oh, no, I'd rather him come and we hear from him. But I would entertain a motion to amend the agenda for that item.
So moved.
The second,
Second.
why don't we, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So why don't we put that just in front of, make that like a 6. I guess we can make that a 6C. Okay. But I kind of got a little bit ahead of myself, and I want to welcome everybody. We only have one attendee, but he's a pretty important one. So, but thank you all.
What do you want from me?
Excuse me?
What do you want from me?
Well, we're glad you're here, John. You're a faithful supporter of this, this committee. But I appreciate everybody else attending. John, I'm glad to see you here. And Peter as well. And Ed, you had a little bit of a scare, but you're here, so that's good. And of course, Joe and Jade as well. Thank you all. Rochelle, do we have any public comments?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the next item on the agenda is approving the agenda. So I assume that we approved that through the motion that we just had. So I'll go ahead. Number 4 is conflict of interest. Does any committee member have a conflict of interest concerning any item on the agenda?
No.
Very good. The next item is the approval of the minutes. And of course, Rochelle, thank you for getting that out and into our hands. Trust you've had a chance to review them.
Motion to approve as written.
Second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Right. Update on the BIS fund. Ms. Connie, would you do that for us?
Yes, sir. We'll start with our financials for the month of May. And we have collected over our budgeted amount for our taxes. We had budgeted $502,945.21, and we have collected $6,894.71 over that amount. Our vendor accommodations tax at the end of May, we still have $104,959.62 to collect. And our Topsail accommodations, we still have the $52,479.81. I did look at that today, and we've already cut a lot of that back. Your accommodations tax, just so you, and I may have said this before, but it's the month before. So what you're seeing here now is for the month of May. And in June, you'll see for the month, in July, you'll see the month of June. So that's kind of how that, rolls. Our FEMA reimbursement from IESA, we still have not received yet. I was in contact with her Monday, it's still in the FEMA queue. And
Sorry. I'll just mess up this.
Sorry, Connie.
Sorry. Anyway, I think I use this money, we're hoping to get it by the end of June, but it may be July. But it is still in the making. And that's gonna be 383,148.27. We've already received our 1,236,457.53. Already in the fund. So, hopefully when we complete that, we will have completed what, IESA's money was. Just a little bit of background on that. I'm gonna be all over everywhere, and I apologize for that today, but I think it's important that we try to get these facts out to you and explain them, and to anyone else that's listening. When the PW was done for the hurricane of IESA's, it was 5,999,999, so it was rounded off at $6 million. We received for that storm, we were awarded the 1,619,634. The balance of that we should have gotten is 4,380,399.66. Also, we spent about $200,000 in the arbitration. So if you want to look at it that way, we lost about $4,500,000 during that particular problem or issue with the hurricane. So just wanted to let you know that and bring you up to date on that. Our parking revenue seems to be coming along, and I looked at that today, and we do have some more funds in there. So I feel for sure, or I hope for sure, that we're going to meet our goal of 6 million. Right now, at the end of May, we have the 5,427,329 in the account. Once we put the 383,148 in there, and hopefully when we finish getting all of the revenue for the rest of the year, these balances, we will have $6 million in the BIS fund. That is the goal.
And that's for this fiscal year?
That's for this fiscal year. So in July 1, hopefully, if not right then, shortly thereafter. It's going to depend on when we get our $383,000 back. The expenses are pretty much running in a normal pattern. We are trying to set up this year where we can deduct the expenses from the parking revenues, not just from the south end, but from this area too, because we do have a 30% administration fee that comes out of the parking revenue. So we want to try to show that we got this ballpark like 100,000, but we know that the 30% also was expenses. So we can kind of know exactly what's going on with that. So we are working towards that, and I've already actually tried to put that in place. So if you start seeing under the 2,500, 700, 4,500 account parking south end expense, that's what that is. That's not anything that we just created, but that is for the auto parking, the administrative part of the revenue that we're receiving. Okay, moving right along. All right, Rochelle, if you put the budget up, we passed the budget.
It was not.
A lot of hard work went into that for everyone, not just one body, but many bodies. So we are glad that that's taken care of. Okay, let's go to the beach revenue. I believe y'all have copies, and it's also up on the screen. The beach inlet and sound revenues this year, we have increased the tax rate for the BIS fund from 6.75 to 14.50. That is a 7.75 increase on your taxes. That is going to give you additional revenue for that around $558,000. Last year, we had appropriated $504,100 for ad valorem taxes. This year, with the new tax rate at 98.5, we're going to hopefully collect collect $1,092,523. Okay, and then moving along, we have next on the revenues, we have this, Pender County accommodations tax. We did reduce that back some to be conservative, and we budgeted $640,000 in that area. That's 100% of the Pender County accommodation tax goes to the BIS fund. For 50% of the Topsail accommodations tax is split up between your general fund and the BIS fund. So we have appropriated $320,000 in that fund, line item. Pender County funds, we requested $180,000. So that's what you have there. And then we have the parking revenue for the south end is budgeted, and this is an estimate. Hopefully we'll do better, but this is $100,000 for the parking revenue. The interest earned, we have appropriated in the budget $70,000, and last year we had $10,000. And this year so far, I have invested right at 4 CDs along with the IESIS money, and glad to report the interest was $10,000. We have collected $125,308 in the BIS fund for interest. Okay. The donation, that's not anything. So the grant from state Topsail Island Vitex project. As you know, we have a Vitex project for the whole island that actually Christina is doing the ramrodding on that, and we are the agent. Topsail Beach is the agent. So you're going to see $839,296.50. And this is just to offset the revenue and expense of this project. So that doesn't mean, it does mean we're going to get this money, but it's going to be a wash, and I'll explain that to you in a moment. We have the total for the budget is $3,241,819.43. That's going to be your BIS budget for the year. We're going to move right on over to the expenditures. The only expenditures in the BIS is what is the exact expenditures. Nothing, there's nothing no different. Nothing we put back. Yeah, everything that we approved and we talked about and discussed many times is all of that is right here in this budget. So you're going to start with professional services and audits. The TI Coastal, which is $434,500. You have your lobbyist, Ward and Smith, $50,600, and Nexon is $16,000. Those two companies are your lobbyists. And also our audit, we take $3,000 of the whole town audit out of the BIS fund. That's split up between the different funds. Okay, in the legal services.
Excuse me, would you go point that out again?
The
audit.
the 25,700,400. And then the audit, it's not shown in the note, but it's $3,000, the 504,100 is in there.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. The legal expenses, we set aside $5,000. And then we move right on down to staff development, 2,500, 700, 1,400. And that's $6,000. And that's for you to go to different trips and things that have to be done during the year for the board members. We'll move right on over to maintenance repair structures. Maintenance repair structures is your beach accesses and things of that nature that we have to do. And there's $100,000 in there, and that was what we had last year in there. Then we have the parking south at end expense. So again, this is just an estimation, but we've estimated $30,000 there. Then dues and subscriptions, we're a member of the American Beach and Shoreline, I believe it is. Then there's another two also our beach and waterway association dues are in here. So that's $3,000. And then you have intergovernmental relations, that's another $5,000. I guess you maybe remember when the dredging company was here, we had a little kind of reception or whatever. So that would be the type of thing that would come out of there. When we had the reception for the DOT people, that was what some of that would come out of there. Then you see down here the Topsail Island Vitex project, the $661,000 is actually for the neighboring towns, and we will be getting that money back. Remember when I said there's 800,000 over on the revenue side? Well, the 661 is what we're going to be paying out of the BIS coffers until we get the money back from North Topsail and Surf City. Then 178,127.25 is the Topsail Beach portion of the BITEX project. So that's money that's actually coming out of the BIS as an expenditure out of your reserve. Okay, and then we have reserve for future beach project, and we have there 1,749,000. So, and I'm going to explain a little bit more about that for you. So anyway, that totals our 3,241,819.43. Now, for the BIS budget, proposed budget, the expenditures are $831,227. That's just what we've just kind of gone over. Your ad valorem, the revenue is $2,402,523. When you take your revenues less your expenses, your net is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,572,000. So if we have for the next 4 years, we should be able to establish $6,288,000. And in 4 years, by the $1,572,000 that you have going into your fund, that should give you an additional $6,000. So the beach inlet and sound reserve should be around $12,288,000. And there's nothing that comes up. I mean, we don't have any crystal ball, but if there's something else that comes up, we have to go into that possibly. If you had decided you wanted to do more BITEX or reval, that could change also. The reevaluation as far as the taxes, we don't know, we didn't know for general fund. So we're just kind of sitting waiting till next year when we start doing our figures again.
When do you think that that's actually going to happen? About January-ish. So we won't know, we won't know even individually for our own houses.
No, that guy came, when he contacted me, he said, what, February, they was start sending out February, I think is when, that guy, when he came to us, he said, if I would start sending out in February.
But that's what we're gonna be taxed on next year.
Yes, sir. The taxes this year was $764,456,000, I believe. I might not be exact, but it was we estimated 98.5%. We did go back and estimate 99% for general fund, but the 98.5 is what we estimated in the BIS. That was before there were some other changes made. So, does anyone have any questions?
Have a question?
Our total, I forgot, what was our total town budget?
Our total budget, 21 million.
21 million and change.
So I'm just trying to see what percent of our percent of our BIS is up in total thing, about 20-something%.
Our BIS was increased 7.75.
Yeah, I mean, out of the total budget, our total budget for the whole town, if it's for everything.
Keep in mind that 9 million of that is the public safety building as part of that budget.
Yeah.
So 21 million includes 9 million of that.
It's almost about 12. But what I'm talking about, our revenue, yeah, for our town.
Oh,
Yeah. I mean, I was looking at the revenue, the total revenue of BIS and total revenue of the town is.
Yeah, it's about 21 million. Rachel, can you pull that up on the budget, the message possibly, or I guess
Yeah.
Doug's going to do that. I'm sorry.
Budget message. It'll take me a minute.
Okay. We do have a total tax rate this year for all services. Our general services is 31.5, the BIS is 14.5, and the CIP is 2 cents. So that brings us to the total of 48 cents per hundred from the 40 cent that we had last year. So we had a 8% tax increase. So 8 cents.
Hey, Joe, if 14.5 cents on 31 cents, it's a lot more than 20%, isn't it? The total budget.
Well, now, that's on the that's the ad valorem taxes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just talking about the whole budget. That's how much we get for that, out of taxes, but I'm just saying out, because you got some other income coming in, that's just BIS money.
Down.
Well, that-
21,397,000.
I charted it, guys.
Oh.
That I charted it.
68. 397.78 cents.
Yes. That's
Total.
21,268,000. Last year, our budget was 21,395,764.
Budgeted. That budget,
That's the total budget.
total budget,
That's the total budget.
and the BIS is 3,241,000.
3,241,000, 819. Last year it was, 1,872,945.
So 13.5%.
Fifteen. I'm quite bad. I think it's 15.4%.
Yeah.
That's it. Okay, I do stand corrected. That was the budget that we had, but when we amended the budget to receive the 1,236,000. So that brought our BIS project up to 3,492,545 last year
After it was amended.
after it was amended.
I say last year, I mean, the current year that we're still in. I've already moved on to the next year, even though we're still in the current year.
So for those who are watching or recording, there seems to be some misinformation out there about Pender County funds, 180,000. Can you just give us a quick synopsis on that?
Well, the Pender County funds is $180,000. They give it to us each year, or we request it each year, for our beach nourishment project and to keep our inlets open. So that's a part of what the county helps us with on that.
And how have we arrived at that number and stuck to that number year after year?
Great
We've
question.
been that way for, till the beginning of time.
Is that right?
Yeah, so actually, it's increased over the years. It went to 180,000 about 6 or 7 years ago. Surf City gets the same amount. Actually, Chris and myself, Kyle from Surf City, about a month or so ago, we went up to, it was May 11th, I believe. We went up to Bergall and Connie was there as well. Sorry, to present about that. And in the past, not this current year, but last year, we actually asked for 225,000. We were denied.
Is that right?
We were.
And you asked for 200 and we
We're
were
denied. And this year, prior to the, there's a form we have to fill out somewhere like February-ish
Yes.
that we get from Pender County. And before we filled that out, there was a discussion about, and I think Morton had actually asked if we could ask for more money. And so myself and Kyle had a standing meeting with Michael Silverman, who was the county manager at the time. And I asked Kyle, was he gonna ask for more than 180? He said, I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. But I asked him, I asked Michael a question. He said, I would highly recommend against you doing that. Don't ask for more than $180,000. And so we did. So that's kind of the general history of that.
Thank you.
And, yeah, sorry.
I just wanted to throw something in there. I mean, there's that 180,000, I think, comes out of the Pender County's general fund, but we're also getting back 300 and some thousand a year out of the
Accommodation.
county accommodations tax, which that you could also keep. There's about $500,000 that are coming from people or the county on my side of the ditch, coming over here to help out because we use the waterways and everything else. So it is, and the great part about that is because we're using the shallow draft fund, that $500,000 generates another $1.5 million toward the county accommodation. So on that, that's important.
And Chris, you might be able to,
Optional accommodation, is that's $1 million.
It's not chopped liver.
so Chris might be able to correct me on this, but I believe it was 2001, there was a resolution through Pender County that put those funds onto the towns themselves to take on. So Surf City and Topsail Beach collect those funds and are able to keep them through resolution.
Yeah.
And Pender County could very well have just said no and taken the accommodation tax themselves.
Right, so I think that was actually legislative. It was the Pender County agreed to it. It was the North Carolina, what do you call it, local government statute. That was done at the Raleigh level to ensure that those funds, the accommodation funds would continuously come back in. So it's a good deal. I mean, we'd love to see, Pender County put more in, but it is a significant, when you talk about it over the life of the project. I'm sorry, I couldn't even stop. Never mind.
No, I just had another thought, but go ahead.
I was just gonna say, again, because that money does generate a 3-to-1 match from the state. And when you look at it, you're over 4 years, we get almost $2 million from the county. That generates another 6. So there's $8 million that goes toward the project every 4 years that is in one way or another generated by that Pender County money. It's almost a third of the project comes from that.
I did want to add that 2 years ago, at about this time, we made a request to the county and through the Oregon Inlet. The Miss Katie, I think it was, because the inlet. What is the name of the Oregon that I made that appeal to? The board that approves whether the Miss Katie can come out here.
Oh, it's Dare County, but I forget what it's called. It's their version of BIS.
Yes. Anyway, so we were asking for assistance for an emergency dredge, even though we knew that we were going to be dredging in later on that year in November. So we had submitted a request for emergency dredge. We also submitted to the county and to Surf City, asking for additional funds to help with an emergency dredge. It was never, it never got to the point where we needed it, but kind of off the record, I was told that Pender County already gives money for that. So
What year was that?
it was 2 years ago, so 2023. So
Well, if I'm not mistaken, Doug, in that meeting with Pender County, it wasn't a surefire thing that we were gonna get that $180,000. And so in a way, well, in a big way, did good work by retaining that.
yes, I will say that a large portion, though, of the reason why we were asked to come up there is for the education. That's an entirely new board. And when we got invited, Michael Silverman was still the county manager, and he was a brand new county manager. So I think a good portion of the reason why we were invited was not necessarily because they were going to take it away and we needed to defend it. It was just as much about education on what we do and why we do it, and what they get out of it for their 180,000 plus, letting us take the accommodation tax. Is that fair, Chris?
It's fair.
Okay. So.
Okay, are there any other questions? I have one question for Fred Connie. There at the end, you were talking about $1,572,000. I'm not sure exactly what I was following there, but
I was saying that the 1,572,000 should be what you are able to put back in each year, unless there are additional expenses. That would be your net for your reserve. So we have, if you take that times your 4 years, we have about $6 billion.
Okay, just point of clarification. This budget year, that number is like 700,000.
That's correct.
And so what the commissioners have done through this budgeting process, they've increased taxes by a significant amount to shore up this fund. And the goal has been $12 million by the next project year, which is 27-28. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And this budget that you all approved gets us there. So I think that's commendable at the very least. Thank you. That's just a comment. I don't know if I'm supposed to give comments.
I totally agree.
But, and I would say thank you for that, because you're looking ahead for the solvency of this town, in my opinion. Okay, any other comments, questions? Then the next item, we amended the agenda because you were on the way. And, so the next item on the agenda is an update from TI Custom. And Jamie, welcome.
Happy to be here. So, it was Friday, the budget was approved. That's correct.
No, it was
Two days ago.
Wednesday,
2 days ago.
2 days.
Tuesday, the 17th at 10 o'clock.
Okay, so with the new budget being approved, what that means is we have all of the pieces that we now need to submit to the CRC, the 30-year plan for its approval. We will be straightening out the numbers and the financial, commitment part of that, to make sure all the numbers are square over the next week or so, 2 weeks. And then we'll put together a package with all of the public comments that we had at the hearing on the 30-year plan and submit that to the CRC for approval. I did find out, or confirm today that that's something that we as the town engineers can submit. It's not a quasi judicial thing like it is with much of the other CRC work. So we don't have to go through the legal things and stipulating facts and all of that stuff. So we're going to be submitting that, very shortly. At that point, it will be either on the next CRC meeting, depending on their schedule, or the following. But they have to bring it up for a vote within 2 CRC meetings, after submission. At that point, once that's done, then we will begin the permitting process to get an actual long-term 30-year permit so that we don't have to go back every other year to get a permit. Don't have to go through the permitting process. If we have a hurricane, we don't have to jump back through the whole, every single hoop to, dredge that following winter. We can actually be much more proactive with what we're doing and being more restorative. So all of that's coming to fruition. Once the 30-year plan is approved by the CRC, which I don't see any reason that they won't. We've got one of the longest term municipal projects that's been extremely successful. The static line that we have currently now as the building setback line will be taken away, and then it will just be the line that is in the zoning ordinance that we passed last year or this fiscal year. So what that'll mean again is that at that point, every lot on the beachfront in Topsail Beach will be a conforming and buildable lot. And that will make you probably the only town in the state that can say that. We're very excited about that happening and look forward to that going through. But we are at a place we can move forward. We've been kind of on hold for several months because of all this having to go through all the public process here and getting that done. But we're chugging ahead now. Also, just to update you, we finished last week the surveys for the monitoring surveys as well as the inlet surveys. So those should be those maps should be coming out within the next little bit here. So we can have those reposted and see what that corner looks like. It's, been of some concern, to the road professional.
I've got about 3 questions. Did we ever, and forgive me because I think I've asked this question before, but I'm not sure that I've really understood it. We got, oh, I guess I can say screwed, right? On the depth of closure thing, the last go round. Are we going to, are they going, to- are we, they're going to keep it at the level that they said that it was, that they gave us the money? Are they for the next project, or are we trying to go back to our original one?
So we went through all the analysis. We did, what we had done previously, which I personally, professionally felt was correct, was that when we were looking at depth of closure, you don't look at storm event years, because they're over and above. So we've taken that out. When FEMA was initially looking at it, they were looking at it with from the Corps' depth of closure, which is the storm event years. How far will the sand move in a storm? Which is kind of stupid, French on that one. But if you're using the storm, how far sand will move in the storm as your depth of closure, then you're never going to have any sand loss. So we went back through the analysis. We came up with a depth that was 17.1. It was not the 12-foot we were using, but it wasn't the 24-foot they wanted. So it's in the middle. That's in the 30-year plan. That's the document that will be referenced and will be the.
Okay, so this is the depth of closure that everybody is on board with, then.
Yes, sir. This is,
Federal government and us.
yes.
For now.
And
That's what we're figuring on.
that's
as
what
far
that's
as-
what we're figuring on, and that's what we will be looking at in the future when we make requests to FEMA or whatever organization that may be in the future.
Can you define depth of closure for me, please?
Sure. So, it is, try to put this in simple terms. Sand moves back and forth, up and down, right? You'll see the bar move inshore. You'll have an event and it'll push sand up on the beach. You'll see it'll pull some down. It goes back and forth. But there's some point out there because of the height of the waves that it no longer gets moved around. So that's where the depth of closure is. If you take the profile of the beach and do it 6 months later, those two lines at some depth will come together. Unless you have a storm event and then sand gets pulled farther out. And that sand that gets pulled past that usual place where the two profiles come together, never comes back. It's out there, it's offshore, it's there, but it's not coming back on the beach. So that's considered lost from the system, and that's what FEMA is willing to help you get back in a storm event. So, when we do our analysis, what we do is look at the amount of sand within the profile, the 17.1 foot contour before the storm. We look at the amount of sand that's within, from that point, at 17.1 contour before the storm. We look at how much sand is inside of that contour after the storm. And the difference is the lost sand. Yes, sir.
It's a really key concept because they're doing the beach survey right now. They're measuring what the volume of sand is right now. So the pre-hurricane season. So if we have a hurricane, then you can do that calculation.
Yeah, so we would come back, typically we come back within a week or two of the storm and see exactly what it's like after the storm. If it looks like it's gonna be a declared event, we don't do it after every event. But when we do see that there's the potential for a claim, then we go out and do it because we don't want to spend your money just to spend your money after a storm. So we try to be selective on those and look at what's the likelihood of a disaster declaration before we do that.
Do you do that, you do it, what, every year, right?
We do it, at least, we do the beach every year, and we do the inlet quarterly.
On the beach? We're doing this, we have a storm event. Are they only gonna give us back the amount that we lost since the last time you did the survey? Because we've already lost some. If every year we're gonna lose some.
That's
So whatever storm event that is, they're gonna go back to the engineering that you did the last time you did it, not back 4 years ago after we did our last nourishment.
it's looking specifically at that event. And so if you had it perfect in a perfect world for FEMA, we would have a survey 2 days before the event, 2 days after, and boom, there it is.
There it is.
So, but we can't do that. So we do it when we're doing it now, because we don't have a lot of losses or gains this time of year, because we're in that kind of quiet period as we go into the beginning of storm season. So we can directly use the data that we have off of the summer survey. If we'd done the survey in March, then we kind of have to prorate over the spring how much losses we see year to year, and take that off, and then take that off, but off of what the storm loss was. So we try to do this so we do window the storm very close.
Chris, you did such a good job on the layman's depth of closure definition. Can you, same way, explain why we would have preferred 24 than the 17 and how we get more money?
So we would have preferred 12.
Oh, 12.
So what happens, so when you look at what really moves back and forth on a regular basis, if we have years and we have no major storm events, stuff that might pass offshore 80 miles, but we don't have the real events here. What you see is that as you come down the beach profile and you've got the trough and you come over the bar, right? When you hit about the 12-foot contour off the bar, from there in, you'll see seasonally, you'll see that bar fold in and fold out, right? Or get closer or farther away, depending on the time of year. So, but it kind of pivots on the face of that bar. When you have a storm, the sand slides down the bar. Realistically, in most of the accretional periods, you're not going to see anything come up onto the beach that is outside the 12-foot contour. We just don't, during our accretional periods, we don't have large enough waves to generate energy down below 12 feet. Right? So you don't have the bulldozer effect pushing it up. So we would prefer to have a shallower depth, because there are significant losses. There's a significant amount of material that's moved between 12 and 17 feet during the storm. That's the difference why it was 1.6 million versus 5 million. Yeah, the difference there was that material that was between 12 and 17 feet post-storm, that variation. So it does, by going to 17, our future ability to get assistance has been reduced. Your insurance policy now has our FEMA insurance policy now has a much larger deductible. Is the best way to look at it. So we've just got to deal with that bigger deductible. And they don't give you an option for buying down your deductible. So,
I ask my next question. And maybe is this something, are we gonna discuss we're going to discuss the FEMA, business about not being able to put the sand on the beach right from the inlet? Is that part of our discussion later?
Yeah, part of the Topsail Island Shoreline Protection Committee.
Okay. Oh, okay. Well, Can I just bring it up then?
Bill, is that okay to talk about?
Yeah, okay, where is that now? I mean, if we have another storm and we need to get our sand, are we gonna be able to do what we've been doing in the past with regards to the inlet in the Cobra areas?
I'm gonna give you a good answer. Maybe.
It's not a good answer.
I don't like that.
So here's the thing. In the Cobra zone, right now, the way the policy stands right now, and there is potential changes to that policy. We're in the administration, we have the Secretary of the Interior, Router and all of those folks are looking at legislative changes to, so to be a policy, to be a legislative. We discussed that during the DC trip. But right now, what we can get FEMA funding for is material in the Cobra zone. Is for material that would be within federal navigation template. So if the bar during the storm shoals up to 4 feet, there is a 150-foot wide section down to 10 feet that we can dredge and get credit for that FEMA's willing to pay. Okay, but our normal template is 500 feet wide, 16 feet. So there's only a portion we have to segregate out that and say there's this much volume here. We can go into Topsail Creek and there's this much volume here. We can go north of the Cobra line and there's this much volume here. So as we look at these projects, what we have to do, and we did this before, was peck out what was legal under the Cobra laws, given the federal navigation channel. And we've consistently been able to cobble together that enough to cover the FEMA amount. But whenever we've done a project, not only have we done the FEMA amount, but we've also done the restoration or advancement that we needed to do for the whole project at that time. So we go ahead and do the whole project, but there's only so many yards. And it may be, that's why I said maybe. So maybe next time we do it and we have 300,000 that FEMA, we're okay on the beach. FEMA says that's outside depth of closure is 300,000 yards. We'll reimburse you for that. And then we look at what's within the allowable template within our permitted program, and that number may be 240,000 that we have available. So we get cut. We get the 240, get paid for the 240 rather than the 300. But we still get assistance on mobilization, which is the big, because you look at these projects and 30 to 40% of the project is getting. And usually, if you're having a FEMA project, they will cover that to get there. So,
and what we're trying to do now is we're trying to get that changed so that we can open up that whole Cobra zone to our to put the sand on the beach.
And whether we do that through total legislation that is nationwide, or whether we get tacked into the exemption that Wrightsville and Carolina Beach have, because we're approaching that 15-year mark. They have, when they did the legislation for them, even though they put it as a 15-year thing, but it really was dedicated specifically to Carolina and Wrightsville Beach. It didn't affect anybody in New Jersey, even though there were projects up there, just for those two projects. So we're hoping that we can piggyback onto that, especially given what the community, I say community at large, has done in preservation. You've got all of the island as a preservation, and now you've got all of the point in this preservation. If there's no greater way to get rid of development in the Cobra zone than to permanently put all the land in the Cobra zone into conservation. So I think if we look at this and then we start having those discussions, that we have a much better political position for having this happen, particularly here. It's a one-off.
Thank you.
Long answer, sorry.
That's what I wanted to hear.
I'm just lastly, I know, looking in the minutes, channel markers, I know they said they can't use y'all's, sonar or all your grant and whatever. They have to have the Corps of Engineers has to come do it.
The Corps of Engineers has to do it. They do, so when we finished, like the Surf City project, we submitted for all of the surveys that we did, including the inland, we submitted that to the Coast Guard. Because we have to, as part of the permit condition, whenever you dredge anywhere near a federal channel, that data gets submitted up. Of course, obviously notified that we're doing dredging, they should come out and remap it. And then once they do that, they notify the Coast Guard, hey, we need buoys, we've got the survey, here you go, you guys decide where you use buoys. The unfortunate thing is that once they determine that they need new markers, they have to get funding for the new markers. It's not like they have a budget for them, like, I hate to use the word slush fund, but they don't have a random amount to come back and put these things in. They have to get them actually budgeted. So it takes, unfortunately, sometimes by the time they figure out that they need new markers,
The channels change.
thinking they, yeah, by the time they're ready to place them, the place they're supposed to put them is already off. So it is an unfortunate thing. And if there wasn't so much liability on it, I would almost recommend the town mark it in some way, even if it's not officially marked, putting polyballs out or something. But there's so much liability that goes along with that I would never recommend to anybody to take on that responsibility. So,
But a local, I know about where it goes. I got marked on my
oh yeah,
GPS. I ain't following my track.
yeah,
But it's for somebody new that's just coming out here. I see a bunch of people with sandbars, stuck up old sandbars.
yes. Now, I will say, except for down at the inlet, which is always clean. Right now, if you've got a chart plotter, the channel is where there is deep water where the chart plotter, you're on the center line on that, you're okay until you get down past the old Coast Guard dock.
Yeah.
And then you better know what you're doing.
Yeah, where you going?
Yeah, you need to know where you're going and know how to read the water. And that will be, no matter what we put out there, again, being quarterly is great, but it definitely changes from quarter to quarter what's happening down there. It is an ongoing, and this is, as navigable inlets, I will tell you, I've been through nearly every inlet on the East Coast and probably half of them on the Gulf Coast. This one is, this is probably one of the trickiest ones there is, because it changes and it's shallow. Even Oregon Inlet, even though it's Oregon Inlet's brutal, there's water on it. You might have an 8-foot standing wave, but you've got 9 feet of water on you. You're not going to bend a wheel going through there. You might bust a windshield, but you're not going to bend a wheel. This one, it's just, and calm days are the worst because it's hard to leave the water.
Yeah, I just wondering, there's nothing, it's just a matter of.
It's unfortunately, it's completely out of our hands. It's known that it's needed, but the process is a federal process that we're not, the only, it's almost too late for the summer. If they don't have it planned, it's not gonna happen, but it's something that we may want to in the future. Drop a note to our representatives so that they can ping them during the winter so that it's ready to go for summer.
When they did the Surf City project and the Norfolk dredging actually picked up the markers and moved them, right? They're the ones that literally picked them up, moved them aside so they could dredge.
Correct.
And apparently they must have been okay with the poles. Apparently they didn't, and as far as I know, they never took any of those.
Yeah, they dredged around the poles. They avoided them.
The one pole we took out, like, close my house up there, right about dead across from, the breezeway. The green one had a marker, had a light on it.
Yeah.
The green one had a light on it, it's not there anymore.
They didn't mean to take that one out.
That was the pole, yeah. That was the whole pole, it had a light on it.
In that situation, Norfolk dredging, they're so sophisticated. I mean, they had everything pinpointed. They knew exactly where to go with that dredge and all that.
Mhm.
Could they not have taken, that marked where they were and then come back and put them in place?
Not legally.
Not legally.
Right.
They could move them legally, but they
Right,
couldn't.
so the process, when they go to those buoys, and they needed to move them because the federal channel up there is only 70 feet wide. But we were dredging, just like we did down here, we were dredging 200 feet wide. So the buoy would be actually in the middle of the dredge template, right? So they couldn't just dredge around it.
Right.
You can't go over one side and go over the other and come, too big a machine to be doing scalpel work. So what they do is they notify the Coast Guard before they get to a buoy. They send them a notice saying, can we move this buoy aside? Coast Guard approves the removal of the buoy. And then the Coast Guard is supposed to come back and replace it. That's where the Corps comes in, is the Corps got to come back and survey our channel and say, okay, this is where the channel is, this is where to put back the marker. And realistically, the marker wouldn't go in the same place because now the channel.
The channel's wider, so
wider.
that.
So all that has to be done through survey by the Corps. And they won't use our survey, which is crazy because we have, at various times through my career, we have been a survey contractor to the Corps. They hire us to go do these surveys, us specific, but then we turn around and say, we need this for navigation, so that work.
So Chris, I got a question. We're kind of at their pleasure, but is there a number that we should be calling to say, hey, guys, we don't have any markers and we're at 4th of July?
I would not be calling the Corps, the Coast Guard, MSO. And forgive me, I don't remember what MSO stands for. Yeah, maybe it's Marine Safety Office. Coast Guard MSO in Wilmington it's over there on Kerr Avenue near or 23rd Street near the airport. But those guys are who you need to get in touch with. So I would have the town constituency bombarded with emails saying we've got an issue here, and maybe that will get it moving.
But has the Corps done the survey?
Give me a minute, I'll check. So USACE navigation. Let's see, yeah, they just surveyed Topsail Banks Channel on June 6th and 10th. So that's good, we're moving in the right direction. Topsail Inlet and Creek was surveyed in February. And the Topsail Creek waterway crossing was surveyed May 1st.
So all of the surveying that for the dredging has been done.
Yeah, so it's a matter of moving through the process.
So we have to beat the.
Yeah, and
beat on the-
Banks Channel that was just completed 2 weeks ago. That's the ones you're all concerned about.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're trying to figure out the phone number for MSO.
Why don't we just go down and knock on the door?
Yeah.
Yeah, this way, here we are.
I don't know, the security guy at the MSO might be as bad as it was up at the GAO building. He didn't try to get to the core.
So along those lines, we're really looking forward to your most recent survey. And I do want to compliment the way that you worked with Stuart Johnson at our last meeting, because you all were right there together talking about where the inlet is deepest, and he's a commercial fishing person at livelihood and fun. And so getting that information out to those folks as quickly as possible is really good.
Those guys, this is a lot of what we do is about them. I mean, that's where I came from. I put myself through school running a group of boats, so I know exactly where he's at.
Okay, any other questions? All right, we'll move ahead, and the next item is the Rocky Mountain Project update. And Christina is not here. Maybe Doug looks like he's getting ready to tell us something.
Yeah, well, very quickly, but before that, I saw a picture this morning of a channel marker being pulled behind a barge. Someone took a picture of it and posted it on social media. Did you see that?
Saw the same thing, it was hung up on dredge pipe, it was being pulled by a tug. I'm not sure.
And the comment said, the marker will end up somewhere north of here, so don't follow it, or something to that effect. So, anyway, it's very quick on the Rocky Mountain project. And we brought this up in the commissioner meeting last week, and then, we're, applying for a grant, and Jonathan Hinkle in his firm, which name of his firm is escaping me right now, but we're working towards that. That's it. It's pretty basic.
Any, I don't think there are any other questions about that because we're still waiting. And last time Christina has indicated that he's pretty close to finishing up the engineering work.
That is my understanding of what as well. Christina, again, is handling that particular project, but, we had some $1,000 remaining on that original contract, and he's working towards finishing that up, and then we're applying. Should have a report. Yeah, should have a report soon, so. I think it was 43 grand or something like that, 41. Anyway.
I think that grant was looking forward.
I'm sorry.
That grant was looking forward. I think it had a max of either 300,000 or 60% of whichever was less. Yeah,
Correct.
60% of the value.
Joe, how many houses are affected?
Well, there's some ties down there, 4 or 5 houses or more. The main thing is like I said, those people can't leave home. If they do leave home, have to drive through salt water to go and get to go somewhere. So a lot of times they have to park their cars up at the beach accesses and walk up there to be able to get. And now that we're charging beach accesses, they will get tickets. And they're sitting in there. They'll get tickets, though they can't park at home.
John, is that?
Yes.
All righty. The next item is Islandwide Beach Vitex. Do you have any update on that?
I have a couple of, again, very quick updates. So we sent the agreement, from Michael Baker International, which is a contractor that was chosen through that RFP process, sent it over to Mr. Coggins to review. And literally during this meeting about 30 minutes ago, he responded with some comments, on some language in that contract. So we'll have to send that back and work through it. I did also want to mention that this morning, and then again, just a few minutes ago, I sent emails to our commissioners, and I may have included you on it. Mr. Snyder, no, I did not. So we had a meeting with Michael Baker International, and because a couple of questions that had come up from commissioners meeting recently was what exactly is the product that they're using? What are some of the impacts that it has, so on and so forth, and how will it be applied? So they responded that as a pier would be brushed on, or Garland 4, which I had never heard of before, would also possibly be used, and that would be mixed in mineral oil and could be sprayed on heavy with low pressure. Another question, and then a follow-up to that was, is there any impact on humans or pets? And they said it dries very quickly, so there should be no impact on humans or pets. And then another question was, could property owners enter into a private agreement with a contractor for vitex eradication? And the response that we got was maybe. It's very open-ended. So
it's going to be a spray rather than scrape.
well, they said there are options, and he described when they would, I'm going to draw a blank on this, on when he said they would scrape and brush on versus when they would spray. So I don't want to answer that incorrectly, but there would be two possible methods, and it was dependent on something. I just don't remember what this one was. Sorry.
The wind.
Well, yes, but there was another reason. It could have been the density of the plant or something to that effect. I'm not sure.
I would assume it's probably the diameter of the stems.
Yeah. So that may have been
To
it.
get into the knots on.
So,
Knots.
yeah, on a day like today, they would probably not be spraying it on. They would be brushing it on. So,
Yes. Any day in the last 2 weeks.
yeah,
Seems like we have.
and that's all I have.
Okay. Yeah, that's a project that we've been looking at for a while, and it will be a big relief when it does get underway. I'll work on that. Our next item on the agenda is a Topsail Island Shoreline Protection Commission update. I sent out, a note earlier today. Our commissioner, John Best, arranged a meeting between, it was supposed to be him and his son, Jack, who is the senior legislative assistant for, Congressman Rouser. John got delayed, so I had Jack all to myself. And it was a really good meeting up at the Jolly Roger. It was Jack and myself, and 10 plastic tables and 20 plastic chairs. And so we had full attention for an hour and a half, and it turned out to be a good meeting. I sent out a summary. One of the big questions that Jack was asking about is, what is this issue the Topsail Island has with the COBRA interpretation? So we had an opportunity to respond to that in a big way. And the really fortunate thing about that is Congressman Rouser was key to that bill that allowed Masonboro Inlet to be used for, with federal funds, and Carolina Beach Inlet to be used for federal funds. And so here we have a representative that has a direct line to someone that's been very helpful to us on coastal issues. So that was kind of done under the guise of the Topsail Island Shoreline Protection Commission. And I think that was a good thing. And also in terms of FEMA reform, Jack has sent us a link that I forwarded out today. They are currently looking at ways to reform FEMA, and and I included this in our information that I sent out this morning. The president, of course, says that FEMA may sunset after hurricane season, but there is also a bill proposed that would modify FEMA significantly by making it a cabinet level position again, streamlining the process between FEMA and the states, give states that are proven to be effective and efficient in administering FEMA funds a more direct line. And so if it does get reformed in the light of what Congress is asking for, it could end up being better rather than worse. But there's still a lot of issue related to that justifies keeping close tabs too, because as you all well know, if we don't have FEMA after a major catastrophic event, it's going to be tough. The other thing that in terms of TISBC, we talked about oyster leases a lot, and we've been talking with David Farrell with Maynard Nixon, and y'all are paying for that. Connie just said that $15,000 a year goes toward Maynard Nixon, and another $45,000 a year goes to Ward and Smith that helps us on the national level. But in terms of the oyster lease, Carson Smith, our representative, had proposed a bill that would call for a study rather than a moratorium. Just recently, the activity has been, do you guys support his bill? And if you do, Senator Jackson will endorse it, and then we can get that study done. That would be by the end of December, preliminary study, and then by the end of March next year, prior to legislation, there would be a study in our hands that tells us how we can better handle oyster leases and how we can move forward. And if we need legislation at that point, how we would do it. One of the things that comes up in that is that if you look at the oyster leasing tool, that Rochelle has said that there is our area is shaded in pink, which indicates there's a cumulative, excuse me, cumulative, that's the right word, impact area, which indicates that even Division of Marine Resources knows that we've got a lot of leases and there's something to be taken into consideration. So kind of working on that angle. And so we're supporting Carson Smith's bill so we can get that study done. There's also something, Joe, that would be near and dear to your heart. There's a bill out there to restore flounder and snapper seasons. And to do part of that bill would prohibit inshore trawling for shrimp.
You said it passed it, I saw that.
Did they pass?
Said it's passed against the House now.
Okay. So that's a pretty controversial issue to stop inshore trawling. for
And
shrimp.
within half a mile of the shoreline out here, so.
So that is on the table and that's part of what TISPC is looking at. They also have a bill corollary to that on how to pay for that. And that is a bill to increase fishing license fees, commercial fishing fees, to kind of pay for the lost revenue from inshore trawling
Yeah.
to mitigate that impact, but it does result in a higher fishing license fee.
Can I comment on that?
Yes, please.
I grew up in the Bogue Sound, and it's a nice shallow sound from the island side back to the mainland. When I was a child in the 70s, I could readily pick up sand dollars, seahorses in the grasses, scallops in the grass beds, sea urchins, all kinds of wonderful sea life in the estuary of the sound. And then by the end of the 80s, all that was gone because the trawlers dragged the bottom of these shallow inland waters and rake everything into it. I mean, I'm not telling anybody anything they don't know, but I was in South Carolina for an extended weekend boating. And obviously this is not scientific data, but drum were jumping all over the place in South Carolina. Big drum. I mean, just repeatedly, all kinds of fish. And my friends were telling me about how plentiful the fish are down in the low country. And you look at South Carolina, you look at Virginia, you look at Texas, they don't have any inland trawling. I know it's going to be devastating for the Pamlico Sound and the shrimp industry, but I think it's just time to adapt and make changes to help our nurseries and our estuaries.
So that's on the table right now.
I hope it passes. I shouldn't say
I
that.
can't say it, I thought you said it passed it. You said, and they gave you, I said, you call your house representative, send them notes, saying to support it.
Okay.
If you, I mean, if you, if that's what you want to do.
Going back to the federal level just a second, one of the things that Warden Smith has done for our island is that North Topsail has an issue with the Cobra maps, and some areas are in a Cobra zone that should not have been put in a Cobra zone. And Warden Smith and their subcontractor, SFG, has prepped Tom Leonard at North Topsail Beach. He's mayor pro tem. He testified before Congress on subcommittee. And now they've got a companion bill on the Senate side of things, so they're starting to get some relief. So Ferguson Group's really heat him up well for that. I mean, when you testify in front of the House committee, you only have 10 minutes. You better know what you're going to say in those 10 minutes and be prepared for the answers. And they did an amazing job of getting them ready for that. Any questions about any of that? Anybody had any other items for the agenda that you would like to consider? Well, someone needs to make a motion that we're done. Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like, thank you very much.
Did you get that?
Yeah.
Anyway.